Well, hello and welcome back to the latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, today I'm going to be covering something a bit different. I heard about tapping quite a few years ago, and I wasn't really sure what it was, and I didn't understand it. But over the years, I have learned that this is something that's very, very beneficial for becoming in tune with all different issues and sorting out your whole energy, your brain, and getting used to really giving you more confidence and becoming on top form with your emotions. Now, you're probably asking, first of all, what tapping actually is. Now, tapping is a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure and modern psychology, and it works to physically alter your brain, energy system, and body all at once. And it consists of tapping with your fingertips on specific meridian points while talking through traumatic memories and a wide range of emotions. Now, that's my explanation for that. But I've got someone here today who knows so much more about this, an expert on tapping. I am absolutely joyed to bring you the lovely Fiona McConaughey. Fiona, welcome.
Good morning. Hello. How are you?
I am very good, thank you. How did you find my introduction to tapping? Is that true? Is it all nonsense? What do you think?
I thought that was brilliantly. I thought that was more expertly explained than I might have said myself. It's perfect.
Wonderful. It took me a little while to write that, to get something together, because the truth is I've never really understood, years and years ago, what tapping is. I saw someone demonstrate this at I think it was a confidence workshop, maybe about 10 years ago. I saw someone touching themselves all over, and I thought, all this really is probably a great way to get OCD. That's what I thought. But over the years, I've learned from many other therapists and clients that it is hugely beneficial. So can you please tell my listeners who you are and what brought you into this?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Fee. I work as a transformational coach for women mainly. And I found tapping back in 2016 when I was suffering from quite debilitating anxiety and panic attacks. And it was something that struck me that it was going to work for me because it worked on energy. And that made sense to me, that if we had blocked energy, that we felt negative emotions, and that tapping on energy channels could somehow shift them and realign them. And that's why then I became sort of obsessed with learning how to do it. I tap every day now. I'm a practitioner, and it's one of the most effective things that I use with my clients to help them get over things, get out of their own way. And it works super quickly.
What sort of people come to you?
I work with women who are like, I'm stuck and I don't know what to do, and I don't feel confident enough to follow my dreams, and I feel like I should be doing something bigger. I know that there's this other world, but I just don't have the confidence to step into it. Oh. And I work with a lot of people who just need to sort of have these fears because we learn everything as a child, and then suddenly we come out into the big wide world and it's like, oh, I'm going to keep these beliefs that have kept me safe, and actually they're the things that now hold us back.
That is something I've covered so many times. It's so problematic. People come to me usually because they're single. That's what I do. I'm a dating coach, and we're going to talk a lot about relationships and tapping, not just a way of romantic relationships, but maybe enhancing your life so you're happier amongst yourself, and you've got more self-confidence and you're more self-love, because I believe all these things can apply to that as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Your very first relationship is the one with yourself. And so if you don't accept yourself, you don't love yourself, you don't find a way to expand on your own, that fulfillment that you are seeking from somebody else isn't going to be there.
I completely agree with you. So you deal with the blockages emotionally and physically, and these are all things that we've built up. They're problems that we've had from our childhood, and they've caused us limiting beliefs now, and maybe, is it pain to some degree, physical pain? Do you deal with
Absolutely. That? Like negative energy blockages shows up as physical pain. You know, working on such and such is a pain in the neck. We verbalize these words that manifest as real things in the body. And so when we tap and we shift that about and think about it as tapping out the old thoughts and tapping in the new thoughts, we can just realign and readjust how we see things. And a lot of time you can tap for physical pain. And I must put a caveat in here that I'm not a doctor. But there is a lot of relief that comes from shifting energy.
See, maybe something like someone would say they're lovesick, and you're saying that's because it's manifested in the body, that you're just a bit unhappy and you've got these horrible feelings going through.
Yeah, I've got this feeling in my gut, and I ask people before we start, especially if we're tapping on anxiety, where do you feel that in the body? Where is it sitting for you? For me, it used to sit on my chest and up and in my throat. But for a lot of people, it's in the gut. Where are you physically finding this? How can we visualize that moving out and through as we tap in new things?
So what would a typical session be then? If somebody was to come to you and say, look, Fee, I want to have a session with you, I want to get some tapping going on, I've got some issues I want to deal with, how would it work? Is there a consultation first, or do you just get on with it? Do you sit there? Is it Zoom related? Is it face-to-face?
Yeah, we do it over Zoom. It's just in one session and it gets recorded, because if you think about tapping in rounds, so you might do 15 minutes of tapping, that would be one round, and you can repeat it till it reduces. But we mark from 1 to 10. Where is your, say it's anxiety, where is your anxiety sat from a scale of 1 to 10? We want to reduce this all the way down to somewhere around a 2 at least, from where they're at, say they're at a 6 or a 7. And then I also want to do the tapping that's as much in their language as possible. So I ask them to talk about how they feel, the words that they say, things that they say to themselves. And then, then we just go for it. We tap until they feel better.
So where do you tap? Is it on the shoulders, all over the head, or everywhere?
Yeah, it's everywhere. No, there's specific points that you do in order. So this fleshy part on the, realize no one can see me, the fleshy part on the outside of your hand, just underneath your little finger, is the first one. The top of the head, inside of the eyebrows, the temples, under the eye, just underneath your nose, like a finger mustache, in the dip of the chin, your collarbones, the side of your chest, or where your bra would sit if you've got one on, sometimes to the wrists. And you just keep going through. And once you know those points, you can do it for yourself. You don't need me anymore.
Are these similar to chakras?
Well, these are energy. Think of these meridian points as the highways through the body, like how the electricity would go through. And the chakras, or those energy centers, are specific points that sit up through the spine and through the crown of the head. So it's slightly different.
I did know that, but I thought I'd just explain that to my listeners in case they didn't know that. I don't know much about this, to be honest. Well, I've got you on here today. I'd love to learn new things, and I think by learning new things, you make your life generally better. And this is why I think this is such a fascinating topic, because people do tap now and they do know what to do. So you're saying it's about 15 minutes, and is this once a day, several times a day?
Yeah, as many times as you need to tap on a subject. So some things, if your trauma is quite deep rooted, maybe it's going to take a few rounds of tapping to get you. Maybe we're going to have to do it over a series of a few days to get you there. For some people, you can do 10 or 15 minutes and you can get a massive result.
Is it always the same order and the same thing, no matter what the issue is?
It's always the same points. If you're tapping for pain or phobia, that kind of moves into a separate area. And then there's specific, like rounds to do that that's slightly different. So we go to the top of the head, to the eye, to the collarbone, to the side. It changes. It's just very slightly.
Is this quite relaxing then to do this? It sounds it.
Yeah, a lot of people, after they've done a tapping, they're like all yawny and lethargic, and that's to be expected because you've had a massive energy shift.
Yeah, I can see that. I know people have anxiety, or breathing's often very, very useful because it calms them down and gets them in check. And I teach them to do that, and role plays and things like that. So I presume this is partly breathing as well. Do they have to do certain breath work at all?
We don't do any breath work while we're doing it because you're speaking out loud.
Oh, you speak at the same time? What are you saying?
So, well, any manner of things. So if I was to do a session with you, for example, you wanted to tap on anxiety, I would say, tap where I tap and say what I say.
Mhm.
And then we would go with, even though I'm feeling anxious and I have a feeling in the pit of my stomach, I totally and completely love, honor, and respect myself.
Okay.
Even though I'm feeling a bit anxious, and so on and so on and so on. And we tap out the old ones, and then we might tap in. And I'm starting to feel today much more relaxed. And I'm feeling much more confident in my body.
So it's all positive reinforcement.
Yes.
That's what it is. How does the brain know the difference between the positive ones and the negative? What I mean is, how do they know if you're tapping in or tapping out?
So when you're tapping and you're tapping on these energy centers, what you are doing is you are interrupting the fight or flight response.
Mm-hmm.
So that release of cortisol, which is the stress hormone in the body, that you might get when you have a certain phobia. Or for me, it was, even though I'd been a performer for years, it was starting to become stage fright for no reason. It was manifesting in a different way. And so when you tap and you're talking about the subject and you interrupt that fight or flight response, then it means you can then re-enter into that environment without that release.
What sort of performing did you do?
I am a dancer, and I worked for many years on cruise ships.
That's always been one of my dreams, not to be a dancer, but I used to be an actor, and I always wanted to be an entertainer on cruise ships. That was one of my things, but that was many years ago. And I almost started hosting singles events and doing singles things on cruise ships, but that was a long time ago now.
Oh,
it's not really possible now, is it?
Great idea. Well, not right now. Maybe next year.
No. So you dealt with a lot of anxiety, and people get stressed and stage fright. Mm-hmm. When it comes to dating, stage fright is a massive issue because people don't want to be exposing the real version of themselves to somebody because it makes them vulnerable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
If someone was coming to you and they're about to go out dating again and they were new to the scene and they always get a bit nervous, and nerves are good. I'm not saying get rid of them completely. As a former actor, I think nerves have to be there. It shows that you care. But if it becomes a problem, I think anxiety is actually a problem that many people have, regardless of who they are, if they're single or not. But if someone's coming to you and says, look, I really want to be better at going out on dates and getting myself being the best version of myself, what advice would you give them?
I think you have to look at the underneath part of that, which is that they don't feel good enough. Because if you feel good enough and you feel worthy enough, you're not really worried about whether you're going to be accepted or not. And that's the thing. Everybody wants to be loved and everybody wants to be accepted and to be liked. And so that thing of not feeling valuable, not feeling worthy, not feeling deserving is really the sort of the underneath layer that comes from. And so then you just work out when did that start? What point in your childhood did you suddenly feel like you were an outcast or you weren't accepted or you weren't part of the group? The funny thing is that I've never really spoken to anybody that hasn't said that they felt like they were an outsider. Mm-hmm. Everybody feels that same way.
They do. Everyone feels that. And even people that are successful and really, really confident, they still have imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And I get that to some degree sometimes. And I'm pretty successful at what I do. And I don't mind saying that. But I still feel I'm imposter. I think, why are people paying me all this money to do this? I think, what are they paying me for? But that comes again from childhood. And it makes me so sad when I say this, but you're told you're not good enough and you feel you don't fit in and you're being kicked out. I was always the last to be picked in the sports games because I used to hate those sort of things. And that's a common thing for many people. Looking back on it, I talk to them. Everyone felt that way. Either you enjoyed playing these games or you didn't. And it's how you're treated at school and childhood. And it makes me so sad. And it helps me to be a better parent. Do you deal with children? Can children do this? Matter of interest or not?
Yeah, children can. But the thing is with children is they don't necessarily understand that they're not confident yet. Your awareness of being confident doesn't come until you suddenly stood with somebody who's more confident. You know, children are just out there like playing, being themselves. And that's the wonderful thing about them. They have this freedom to really express themselves in that way. And that just, I don't know why it diminishes as we get older. And then opening that back up is quite tricky.
It's the innocence. And what you're saying is so true, because again, it comes back to dating. And I teach people this. It's being the innocent, vulnerable person who you don't care. You have no care in the world about what you do. You run around, you don't care. There's a horrible quote that says, dance like no one's watching. which I say is horrible because it's very much overused rather than the fact I don't like the quote. I think it's a good quote, but that's what it should be in life. But we're told that we shouldn't do this and it's inappropriate, and you shouldn't flirt, and you shouldn't be playful, you shouldn't smile too much, you shouldn't touch people, and it's just don't do this and don't do that. So as adults, we're going into dating, we don't know what to do, particularly guys. And I know you deal mainly with women, but I have men and women that come to me for dating.
Yeah, we live our lives by societal shoulds, these expectations that aren't really real, that are imprinted onto us because that's what successful people look like they're doing, or that's what I read in this one book, so now I must get up at 4 a.m. because that's going to mean that I crack the code. Or we live by these shoulds, and we don't necessarily look inwards and say, hey, what's my values? What am I standing for? What kind of person do I want to be?
Can you do self-discovery through tapping?
Yes, because as you, and especially if you are tapping for yourself, the things that you say often are your thoughts that you wouldn't, let me rephrase this. You're speaking so quickly on a different subject that you're not having time to preempt what you're going to say. So a lot of the times when you're saying something like, oh yeah, that I do feel that about that. So if you're tapping on money, for example, or you're tapping on feeling deserving, it might be that a memory comes up. I remember this time I feel I didn't deserve something. And so it uncovers all of these different thoughts that you've hidden, you don't want to think about.
Is that a good thing?
I think it's a good thing, because when you recognize something, when you're aware of something, then you can change it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I just seen what you said if I said that. I like to try to pretend that I'm challenging in a Louis Theroux style way.
Testing me.
No, it's just I think sometimes some things are best left in the past. For example, bad relationships, because I tend to focus as a coach on what you do now to shape your future. That's what works, rather than focusing on the past. So I'm not that type of coach that deals on how you got on with your mum and dad or boys and girls when you were younger. But it is an important part of this. But I think sometimes we suppress memories, and by having that, it will create these energy blocks that will just carry on, which we discussed earlier. So one thought that popped into my mind earlier, if it's the same thing they're doing each time and they have a session with you that's pre-recorded, would they just have a one-off session with you? Or would it be a weekly thing? Or would it be the same thing over and over? Would it change?
Yeah, it totally depends on the person. It depends on your, on the issue. But I think one session can be enough to make a big difference. 2 or 3 sessions, and you can tap on the repeated same thing. You can keep tapping those feelings, because you're reducing the same feelings. You're tapping in the same feelings. So the more you do it, the better result that you get.
Right. What wouldn't this work for?
This works for everything.
Okay, yeah.
This works for when I'm feeling nervous about something that I need to do. If I'm going to go on an Instagram live, or I'm going to record a podcast, I'll do a tapping so that I feel like I'm confident. Or if I don't want to do something, or I'm not feeling motivated, do a round of tapping, because it shifts energy. Yeah. And when you're wanting to feel different, you're wanting to put yourself in a different energetic state. And that's what it does.
I did think that when we first started speaking, what great energy you've got. And I actually detected that from your pictures you've got on Instagram and profiles and things, which is why I wanted to get you on here, because I could tell that, which is quite amazing in itself. Partly the fact that you were smiling in all the pictures. And that enough in itself tells me that people are positive. And it proves something that I say to people with online dating and dating app photography in particular. If you don't smile, people aren't going to be interested. It's low energy, isn't it?
It is low energy. Yeah. And that's what we have. It's what we have to give out to the world. And you're right, when we're coaching, we're all future focused, right?
Yeah.
What can you create from this point forward? And you're going to want to step into that with a different kind of energy. You're going to need a different kind of energy if you want to create a different kind of life. And you have to cultivate it. You have to spend time knowing what works for you to put you in a high energy state.
It's about empowering yourself. That's what it is. And making sure you're in the best state possible.
Yeah.
But do people initially get a bit embarrassed about doing this? Or do they?
Yes.
They probably go over it quickly, I imagine. But how would you advise them?
Yeah, people get embarrassed to do tapping. So when we do Zoom sessions, I allow them to mute, so I'm not hearing them back. So they're only hearing me.
Yeah.
And that makes it, they can turn the camera off. That makes it a lot easier. I also have a group and I do a live tapping session. So they can all see me and I can't see anybody. And it's a great way to get, because I realize that if you're somewhere public, if you're about to get on a plane and you're feeling anxiety, you're about to go on a date and you're outside the restaurant, that tapping like a madman or woman might not be the best thing. But I think when you have tools that help you, utilize them. Don't be embarrassed about trying to be the best version of yourself.
It's caring too much about what other people think about you. That's
Yeah.
why you get these little blockages and people stop doing this and they get embarrassed by it. Whenever I've tried to do NLP techniques, and often it involves closing their eyes and becoming vulnerable and putting yourself into that. And it's difficult to start with, but actually it's easier over Zoom, having said that, for reasons you said, because you don't have to actually do it. And you can avoid eye contact as well, which is quite good in that situation. But I think absolutely embrace what you can do and then try new things out. It might not work for you. I'm sure you'll disagree. It will work for everybody, you'll probably say. But
yeah, I think what works for you is what you believe will work. And I think that's the same with anything you try. If you're willing to change and you're willing for something to work, great, it's going to happen for you. And if you are going to be a non-believer, then maybe it might not.
Well, I can guarantee it won't work if you don't try it.
Exactly.
Well, anything into dating, people that don't expect Mr. and Mrs. Right to knock on their door and say, here I am, particularly in these strange times now, it's not going to happen. You have to go out there and try new things and be experimental. But who actually first invented tapping? Do you know? Or was that a big question? You don't know? Okay, right.
That's a big question. I don't know. It became more popular. It's been used for the last sort of 20 to 30 years mainstream wise. And it is a version of, or has come from, acupuncture and acupressure. But no, I should have done better homework.
Sorry to throw you on the spot there. It's interesting because I just wonder who first did this, because we know who the founders are of NLP and hypnosis to some degree, but maybe it's always been going. If it's Chinese, it could be going thousands of years to some degree, couldn't it? In different versions of it. I know that acupressure has an acupuncture, and if I tried acupuncture for insomnia a while ago, and it was quite nice, but they didn't do proper acupuncture. They stuck me on like an electric machine thing.
Oh yeah,
stimulating, and it was quite.
There's a really good pressure point here, just the little dip on the outside of your wrist. If you suffer from insomnia, that if you massage that where the little hole is for a couple of minutes, that can help you fall asleep.
My mum once bought me a wristband, had a little bead thing on it, the same thing. You told me that it was real then, it did work.
It was real, yeah, it's real. It's a point that can help, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll try that. Okay, right, back onto relationships again. Enough about me and my issues I've got in my life.
You're insomnia now.
It's not even that bad. I've got little kids, which never helps you sleep at the best of times.
Oh, yeah.
But I've never needed that much sleep anyway, which is good. But back to my single listeners who are listening to this. We're coming towards the end of the time already. This is quite amazing. This is great. But
it's blown.
Could you give me maybe like a 30-second or 1 minute exercise for somebody, a little introduction to tapping, someone that generally wants more confidence in life? Just maybe like 30 seconds about how that might work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm tapping on the top of my head here, and you can just keep tapping on the top of your head. And you could say, I am valuable, and I am deserving of love, and I'm worthy. And I have the ability to meet somebody. And when I meet somebody, then I can be impressive because I have a lot to share. And I have a lot of love to give. And I'm exciting. And although it's nerve-wracking to meet somebody, actually the other person's also probably nervous. And we're both in the same boat. And so I can choose to make it easy for them as well by being calm and being the most confident person I can be and being accommodating to them and listening before I speak and being kind and remembering that they're feeling exactly the same and that I'm not alone in my feelings. And that actually it's exciting to meet somebody. And I want to. And so I'm going to have to take this first step out of my comfort zone and feel good and feel confident.
That was absolutely amazing. And I feel really chilled out just watching you do that. Unfortunately, that won't translate to my listeners, but you were going through the different points that you mentioned before when you were going down there. Yeah. I thought that was so almost hypnotizing just to watch that. I wasn't sure if you were going to make me do it with you or not, but luckily you didn't, because I probably would feel awkward doing it myself. I would have done it.
Might have been a bit much on the speaking, the double repeating over the podcast.
It would have been a bit much. I think me moving around would have messed my microphone up. That was my excuse.
Yeah, I think I tapped it. Apologies.
And that was really good. So you've been doing this quite a few years now. You said 3 years.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you find that you're busier now due to the whole COVID situation? Or
it's the thing that people come to me most for now, because it feels like a more tangible result. Right? It's more action based. So a lot of time for coaching, and coaching's not particularly mainstream over here yet. So that the understanding of what you would get from a coaching session is different to the understanding of what they can get from a tapping session, which is like, I'm going to walk out of here feeling different. So yeah, I mean, I am busy tapping.
Busy tapping.
Busy tapping.
And how long is a typical session the first time? Is it 15 minutes or is it an hour? Or is it just...
Yeah, I allow an hour because I really want to be able to tap in how that person talks, because we have to be able to speak to their brain. So I want to understand. I spend a lot of time writing down different phrases that they've said as I'm asking questions to get to the root. How do you really feel about this? What is it? What's the fear? Where do you feel it? And then we can repeat all of those for that person to make it specific for them. It's personal.
So you play it back to them in their own words, and therefore they're more likely to identify with it, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, you might just get much better results like that.
Can you give me an example success story of someone this has really helped?
Yes, I run a tapping group actually, and somebody in there was suffering with bad anxiety, and we did that one. I just went in live, was a half an hour talk through and tapping, and by 20 minutes later after I'd done it, I got a message to say, I feel completely different. I suddenly feel like my energy is totally different. I feel lighter. That pressure, because we often feel anxiety, especially anxiety, as weight. It's physical weight that sits in our sort of energy field. And when you lift that, you feel much lighter and springier. And they really had that feeling. That's
amazing. That can really benefit people then, can't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's so relaxing.
So good.
Do you know what ASMR is? Have you heard of that?
Ooh, no.
No, it's no, it's not a therapy.
It's like, oh God.
It's a very popular thing that people can do now. Some people, about 10% of people, can feel tingles in their head by doing this thing. And there's certain noises and certain actions can cause that, like a sort of vibration in your spine, in your head. And I find this would be amazing to have the tapping alongside that. So you're almost getting completely a whole body experience to some degree. That's not what you would do, of course, because it's probably not the same. I'm not sure ASMR is a professional therapy, but I find that both those things combined could be incredibly relaxing. I do advise some people to do ASMR who are very stressed out, and it can really help with nerves and help you just maybe sleep. Maybe it's a James thing because I don't sleep very much. I watch these videos sometimes and they can really calm you. So I've got a lot of energy. I've got a lot of want to help people. Do you find that your anxiety is gone now, or do you have to do this every day and it just helps?
It's different now. I have it for different, I'm doing something different. So I have it for different things. I get anxiety about whether people are going to think I'm a good coach, or whether, normal things as we put ourselves out there and as we test our comfort zones and as we keep stepping, we get nervous about whether we're going to be accepted on that level. But by tapping every day, it doesn't become something that manifests in my world. Just stop it in its tracks. I just don't allow it to come in anymore, because I know I've been on the other side and I know how debilitating it is. And you start to worry about the panic about the panic, and it layers and layers and layers until you can't control it, till you're not, you're hyperventilating. And so I don't let it get to that stage anymore.
Well, that is amazing in itself. And obviously doing really well with it. I can tell your confidence, and very relaxing and very chilled out. And do you know what? We're over already. Time is up. And that is just flown by. And it has
flown.
It always does. I'm fascinated by this. If somebody wanted to find you and find out more about your therapy, and what is it, therapy? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Coaching.
Yeah.
How would they find you?
Come and find me on Instagram. That's really where I am, and where the links are to everything I do. I have a free tapping group, and I go in on my Facebook every Tuesday. It's called Tap That Tuesdays, and we tap on a new subject. And you can come and join. If you just want to test it out, but you're not ready to commit, this is the perfect place for you. Just come and see. Have a go.
So what is your Instagram account?
Oh, at Fiona McConaughey, which is the right mouthful, isn't it?
Is that a Scottish name?
It is a Scottish name. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. That's what I thought. Brilliant. Thank you, Fiona. I really do appreciate you coming and telling everyone about your tapping. And I hope people will come to you on the Instagram, find out more, and join your groups, and just give this a go, because I think it really can be beneficial. If I didn't, I would never be talking about it. So give it a go, and thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespreece.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.